So for any of you who don't know me, I'm JL. I work at the Randall Library. My pronouns are she, her. And I want to thank you for joining us this evening. We're really excited to welcome Stuart Getty, who's the author of How to They, Them, A Visual Guide to Non-Binary Pronouns and the World of Gender Fluidity, which I have right here. Stuart is a genderqueer writer and filmmaker, and will share with us 2 short films and some slides from their book, as well as answering some questions that you all might have.
The whole point of writing this book was to answer questions and to create a space that felt really safe for people to be like, hey, I don't know what gender means, or I don't even know what a binary is. It goes that, that nuanced, so that there is no I don't know, I want to bring people along on the educational journey, and I feel like they, them, and the pronoun thing has been just really sticky for particularly my parents who live in Kentucky in their 80s, and they just can't, they're like, I learned this grammar lesson and I can't let it go. And so for those folks and more, that's why I wrote the book, was sort of to take everybody along on the journey. So,
right. I think we're ready to get going.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for all showing up tonight. This is really interesting. I've been doing these Zoom events, and they're really different than a reading per se. So I'm treating them differently, and that's why you'll see some film and some Q&A, and then also just showing pieces from the book, because I think it's a little guy, it's a little short, chunky one. It's got a lot of pictures. It's made to be extremely accessible and understandable, easy to understand. So so that's what I'm trying to do with my speaking events at first as well. So first thing we'll show is 3-minute film that features me behind the camera. It's called They. I don't believe I'm able to share my screen, so this is going to be all on the Randall Library to share this, I think.
Okay.
So this first short piece will features my family. It features my wife now. Hi, Adrian. I saw you there. This all is coming about because of my wife's friend, Adrian, who's friends with the Randall Library. So I was just giving a shout out. But this is me behind the camera, kind of with my family. This was actually sort of the first time I talked about using they, them with my family. And I don't know why I used a camera as the way to do it, but I did. And it helped me kind of buffer my reactions of getting hurt and do it more as a director and want to just be curious instead of man, why can't you get this? So yeah, so I made this little piece with my family, my partner, my friend.
What does they mean to me? They means, what does they mean to me?
Have you ever heard of the genderqueer? But no.
Except for my mom told me that you wanted to be called they.
Have you heard of the word they being used for people?
Only through you.
I have a little bit, but mostly through you.
And do you have trouble with it?
I do.
Yeah.
Why?
It just doesn't seem to make sense for an individual, for a single person. So many people are so confused by it and I think frightened by it, but once they start hearing about it and hearing personal stories, people really quickly, I found, become empathetic.
That's kind of funny because you were both.
Yeah, I mean, we fight for your cause, even though, my mom says to me, it's just not something I'm going to put into my language, my vocabulary. I say, well, the more you hear it, the more easily it flows.
Do you think that you can call me they?
I don't know.
I could work on it.
It's not that hard. It's just not that hard. We use it all the time in normal speech when we don't know the gender of a person. And if you start looking for it, you'll see where you do it in your normal speech.
Well, it's a weird pronoun. It's not easy. I've said, you're a copywriter, make something easier. I understand the legal terms, legalese, why we're taking it on.
It's not weird. It's different.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't say it's weird, you know.
For me not to be able to call you my sister is very heartbreaking. And I don't like doing it. I say sibling to be appropriate to you, but I think of you as my sister, even if you weren't, like, ever a sister.
It will be difficult to call you they because I only had one child.
It is grammatically correct. It is. There's like absolutely no doubt about the fact that it is grammatically correct. It was the Merriam-Webster Word of the Year in 2015.
Can we ask you questions?
Yeah.
What does Nora think of they?
How do I feel about using they and dating a they? Well, I love you and I love dating you and I love your gender. It just makes sense. Like I've told my friends, like I have friends who have said to me, I'm really worried about getting Stuart's pronouns wrong. And what I've told them is once you meet them, you will be able to tell that, you know, that they is the most appropriate pronoun. Like it makes so much more sense than he or she. And it's just not hard.
I can try. I can call you anything because I think I really know who you are. Okay? And that's more important than what you're called.
See if you're seeing this. Can you see this?
You can see the screen here.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, hi there. I'm Stuart Getty, and I wrote a book. It's called How to They Them, a visual guide of non-binary pronouns in the world of gender fluidity. I like to share this because a few of my heroes are on this page. Eileen Miles says this is totally cool. Michelle T, a huge queer writer who helped just shape who I am. And Alok Vaidmanan, who's the most famous day-using person out there. So that's a big deal to me. This is my illustrator, Brooke, without whom I could not have done this. So I love to start each talk with a big shout out to her, because if I drew it, it would look a little bit like this, which actually, when we were starting to plan the book, this is the very first drawing that I sent to Brooke to say, okay, we're gonna put together a book proposal. We're gonna go for this. And thankfully, she's an amazing artist, and she put together these first slides. These were actually what helped us sell the book in. So I like to start with them. They it good. Gently place your tongue against the inside of your front two teeth. Now blow until a whistling sound lightly emerges. They it, don't spray it. Now open the mouth to say A, as in the letter A, or the sound Canadians make at the end of sentences, kind of. Or like a friend is driving by in a car and you want to get their attention. A. Now let's try it together. TH. A. It's literally that easy for your mouth, but your brain, well, that's a little harder. And you'll see it just has a little bit of humor, a little bit of tongue in cheek. But this is actually how we sold the book. This was sort of part of our proposal, were these first couple spreads. Thankfully, we did, publish the book. Yeehaw. And then really, I did almost draw every page before she did. So I like to show that to folks as well. And also, I was going to put on page 143 a pager joke, like beepers, because 143 is I love you in pager number, but I ran out of pages. But I like to show, the evolution of where the illustrations came from my brain into an extremely talented individual, Brooke thing. So this is what it is. This is the story of Stuart is how we started out. There's lots of rollerblades in it because at age 37, I thought, let's take up rollerblading again, Stuart. And so as I was writing this book, I was also in a bit of a like a rollerblading gang with other 30-somethings that, yeah, anyway, so it starts with a little bit about me. I tell my story, how I came to be, how I found the, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, Kentucky's known for horses, good bourbon, fried chicken. You'll notice my name is Catherine Stuart Getty. My middle name is Stuart, so I've actually known Stuart as my name my whole life, just not as my first name. Kentucky's known for horses, good bourbon, and fried chicken. Not gay stuff, but boy, was I gay. It was in me all along, the feeling of being not quite female, not quite male, not quite like the other girls. Growing up in Kentucky, I was a tomboy, a weird little kid. Think bowl cut, buck teeth, skin knees. Tomboy was an okay category for girls who like to do boy things and wear boy clothes. Maybe there was a touch of shame or guilt to it to not be what a female should be, but being a tomboy was second tier, almost like a girl, but not the best kind of girl. Favorite things on this are definitely the bourbon bottle and the Band-Aid on the trophy. Maybe the bowl too, like the bowl cut, which I don't know if your parents did this, but my parents also then like curled the underside of the bowl cut. I don't know what that was, but it like went like this. It was such a good cut. Thanks, Ma. And so I'm not gonna read through every single page, every single word of every page, but I just wanted to give a general feel for what the book is like. I do talk about being a tomboy and how I think that tomboy as a label was like my first moment of feeling like I could be outside of what the gender presentation for female was. So I think it was like kind of the first time I got to like explore. I got to be a little bit louder in classes and class clowny, which maybe isn't such a gendered thing, but maybe in our culture it is considered that way. So I loved the word tomboy. And then I speak about like how I came to be the gayest one that I am now, but you know, going to summer camp, meeting feminists, seeing armpit hair and happy trails was actually, for me, was a really revolutionary moment as someone who has a lot of body hair. Seeing someone sort of rock their body hair was a really like affirming, validating part of my queerness. And tie-dye and Birkenstocks, I'm surprised I'm not wearing one of each right now, because that's really a staple for my outfits even to this day. So more shout outs to my illustrator, because like, how good is this? Talking about the process of coming out as Stuart and coming out as they, it was, you know, didn't all happen at once. Some people think that you just like come out of the closet, but like I was using Kate at work still. And then Stuart with my, you know, more party queer friends. So we were, you know, liking that to a mullet, Kate in the front, Stuart in the back, but party all over. And actually, the first time that I heard they was at a queer spiritual gathering in the woods. And it was, you know, there's a ritual during these events where you come together and you're in circle and you all say your names, and then everyone like says your name back to you. And then you say your pronouns. And I was in this circle, about 60 people, and about 10 other people in that circle said they, them as their pronouns. And I had never before that date ever said anything but she and Kate, actually. And at that event, I just was like, Stuart, and they yelled it back to me, Stuart. And then, you know, they, them. And I'm just getting chills thinking of that moment, because it was just like really a big moment for me, because it was kind of like me owning it for myself in that moment. And I was supported by a lot of other folks in that circle too. So I tell that story, tell about like, I love the word weird. I use the word weird with love. I wear it as a badge of pride. I say the weird pronoun with love because God bless it. Sometimes using the singular they can be a real pain in the rear. It can. It's hard sometimes. I say weird pronoun because maybe it does make people feel weird at first. Even when I first started asking for it, it felt a little weird. But weird is okay. Weird is good. Weird means growth is happening. Weird is what pushes us to our edges so we can stretch and grow and be more. Yeah, weird is every future new thing that doesn't exist yet. Weird is the way. So I really am hoping with this book that it is an open place. It's a place of love, of curiosity, a place to learn, a place where every person along the, you know, spectrum of knowledge around these things is offered a place to, acceptance and understand. Let's, talk openly about it. That's why I'm on this call. Let's have your burning questions answered. Hopefully most of them are in the book. And that's how this book is sort of organized. There's very much like They 101, which is like the more textbooky part of this, where it breaks things down so that like one of the main questions I'm asked is like, what's the difference between gender and sexual sex assigned at birth? And what's the difference between gender and sexual orientation? So this section breaks it down, and we called it the big three, saying that if you understand what sex assigned at birth means, which is like you're popped out of your parent and they go, what's the genitalia look like? Cool. And then sexual orientation is who you like to be romantic and sexual with. But for some reason, the they thing, when you add it in there, people are like, I don't understand where you fit with all of that. So, so no shame. I mean, we start very, very, very basic. We talk, what is sexual sex assigned at birth? What I just went through, like it's a girl, it's a boy, it's a they. And then I break it down, like what do we think is happening here? Is male means this, female means this. But in reality, it's all over the place. Chromosomes can be all over the place, hormones, internal anatomy. And I even make kind of a joke of like original life was a blend of all sexes and reproduced with itself. So bringing up things that you may have heard about, things like the Klinefelter syndrome or Turner syndrome, which when we think that sex is just such a binary of male female, we're actually cutting out these folks as well. And we think testosterone is male, but in reality, it doesn't always mean that. All of us make testosterone. So it really, all of those like meandering pieces I tried to cover. That's in sort of the textbooky, but then there's like the social and personal stuff. And this is the biggest question of all. What do I do if I mess up? And so I love to always talk about this with folks, which is, I say, AKA, or how to recover quickly and respectfully from a slip in gender or name. And so the magic is really in what you do after you mess up. So it's really in that moment, being really quick to correct yourself and move on. So Stuart is here to show us her film, their film. I've heard they're a good speaker. So there's not even a hiccup there. It's just someone get him or them a glass of water. They rollerbladed here. See, I shredded. Or Kate, oops, Stuart, do you want to shred? Which I'm teaching my family that one. But I mean, I'm trying to write it in this way to help you understand what these moments are like for me, but also have compassion for what it's like for those on the other side. So in these moments where, and this has happened a lot, where like someone messes up and then they're like, oh, no, I'm so sorry. Stuart, will you ever forgive me? And they go on and on and on for, a while about it. I feel like it becomes more about their shame about what they've messed up and less about wanting to honor this pronoun. And so I'm trying to show that in a way that's funny, but also maybe gets you to understand that sometimes you just want to fix it, move on, and let life keep living. And also, this is actually a meme that's going around sort of on the internet right now of like, if a trans person corrects you, say thank you. And it also is actually a really good sign. It means that they want to continue to be friends with you. So they're going to correct you so that you'll continue to, use the right name or pronoun. If we don't correct it, it may mean that we don't really see ourselves hanging out with you in the future. But that put a lot of hot tips in as well, just like advice from queers, essentially. One thing that's really interesting that people sometimes don't know is that some trans people think that gender reveal parties are actually kind of transphobic, because at the time of a gender reveal party, you only know the genitalia, you don't know the gender. And I'm just trying to make that point, and this is through a joke, obviously, that you can't just assume based on what's down there about what the gender expression and what the gender identity is. Also had to fight really hard to keep this illustration in there. The editor was like, I think it's just a little bit too much, but we tested it, and it maybe is a too much. But I like it. Another hot tip is just don't ever ask trans people about their genitalia. I wouldn't ask anybody on this call about what's going on down there. So just like the warnings that are on bags that say, don't put this over your head and breathe. Here's a warning. Please stop asking trans people about their junk. Yeah. I love showing this before and after. This is my drawing of like who can use they, and then this is what is in the book. Making the point that those people who use they, us people, we the people, they look all sorts of different ways. So you can't take any cues from the outside to assume that anyone uses any certain pronoun. I think that's the moral of the story. So there's some do's and don'ts in there. There's lots of fun stuff. This was a question from a gay man asking, yeah, but if I'm saying like, hey girl, to like a mixed gender room, like, are you going to get offended? And this is saying, probably not. If I know that I love you and we love each other, probably not. I don't care. But here's some other words to try, like people, kids, kiddos, you, friend, gentle person, folks. Just asking us, maybe there are opportunities for us to remove gender in places we're putting it for no reason. Went through a lot of questions that I got. I actually gathered them from hundreds of people in a Google Doc, and I answered them, and then the top questions made it into the book. One of them being like, aren't you in the wrong bathroom? Yeah. If I'm a gender neutral person and they're binary bathrooms, both of them would be wrong. So otherwise I'm in the gender neutral one. Usually that's a one-holer or a personal room, and in which case I would say, why are you in this small room with me? And I wanted to bring up some things that are like tough for those that are gender non-conforming. That's what GNC means. Like the TSA is a pretty actually awful experience for gender non-conforming folks, because I don't know if many people know this, but the scanner machine that you walk through, where you put your hands over your head, right before you go through, TSA has to push a button that says pink or blue that that gender clocks you, essentially. So as you're walking up, if you look like a man, they'll put blue. If you look like a woman, they'll put pink. And it's spick and span, got a binary, yeah, cool. But for trans folks, we've had to learn about this system so that we know how to be safer and not to be patted down for a long time. I travel a lot I used to travel a lot with business. So I had to learn this hack of actually leaning forward and saying, push pink, because normally they think they push blue, and then the buzzer goes off. That there's just reminders about things, but I like to show this page because I think that this is actually my whole thesis statement for the whole book, is that this is more than just pronouns and grammar lessons and bathroom chats, which it always seems to revolve around. But this is about the freedom of expression and the human right to choose for oneself, how to identify oneself. And while they might be for me and only some of us, the freedom to choose for yourself who you are and how you want to be identified in this world, I think, is for all of us. And that, I think, is written in there in so many ways. And the way that I have written it, I've tried to really get that across. And also, this is actually the last pages of the book, and this is a message to other trans folks. You're not alone, and we are sacred. Because I think those are the big things that I want people to walk away from feeling and knowing from my book. So that's just a quick breeze through. By no means exhaustive. However, yes, that's my book. Actually, this is my book. Yeah. Any questions?
So I don't know if you've been looking at the chat box, Stuart, but I'm just looking through, mostly comments, not really questions.
Yeah.
About Bridget was saying we should all embrace our own weird a little bit more. Good comments about the illustrations, and glad you kept that illustration in. And not knowing about the TSA stuff. And
Yeah.
Kathy kind of was saying, I read a story about how wonderful a TSA agent was by asking ahead of time. That I wonder how common that really is.
You know, some of them realize the limitations of it when dealing with gender nonconforming or even trans folks. Because for trans folks, if they've not gone through surgery, are going to like be through that, through that machine, they're still going to be in the wrong bucket, and so I think that people are fighting to change the systems, and also I think it is what it is for right now. But I've actually spoken to a lot of TSA agents who I did sort of like this podcast where I went around with another friend who looks a lot like me, i.e. like, is that a boy or girl? And we went to the airport and we asked them, okay, if we were going through the machine, would you push pink or blue? And more than once we had people say mauve, like purplish, which sadly doesn't exist yet, but it'd be fun.
So we do have a question about the sort of the plural aspect, the grammar part of this. They is supposed to be more than one. Can you just cover that a little bit?
Yeah, that's my mom's main thing, honestly, is that she was she was taught, and I was taught. I mean, I'm a writer by trade, actually, and so at first it was uncomfortable for me as well. And I go into the grammar, and the whole grammar section is called "but it's not grammatically correct" in quotes, which is pretty much the question that you get, and the pushback that you get that seems sort of, hey, I'm just standing up for my grammar rights, and yes, and it's I don't know. I mean, I feel like to me they exist beyond he and she, and there are other words that people are using that, there's zir, there's other ones that have been around for generations, and they've never really stuck in a way that they has stuck, and I don't understand it all the way, because I also hope that there's a new word in the future that doesn't confuse everyone so much with the grammar. However, like, I'm waiting on a package from my delivery person. Like, I wonder when they're going to get here, because I don't know if that person is a man or a woman or a non-binary person. So I just said they. And we do that with our brains anyway. This is a point that I make in the book, is like, we do that anyways. And I think there's also this question of like, okay, well, if you're going to do it, then do you do like they are, or you like they is walking down the street? I don't do that. Some people that are even more hardcore do that, but I don't do that, because I feel like twerking two things in your brain doesn't feel good to me. Do you understand what the point I'm making is? Like, I will just use the plural verb even though I'm a singular person. To your question, are we all more than once? I think we're multitudes of people, but I think the they that I'm using is more existing beyond these two binary categories into something that's beyond, and not so much about like I'm a plural. Although I do make the joke that I'm 100 dads then, because I have very dad energy. But yes, we're all multitudes, Jonathan.
And then sort of jumping on that, let's see, Kelly was saying, are there grammar rights, language and grammar changes?
Yeah, exactly.
Language is lived.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's another.
I also missed her earlier question about. Oh, go ahead.
You go.
Oh, I missed an earlier question that she also asked about. Do you speak with student groups?
I have. And something that's been awesome about this book and writing it with a lot of access in mind, of like it being able to reach, you know, if I was writing maybe for my 80-year-old mom, it also was really, really accessible for like a young adult audience. And actually a lot of libraries are coding it as young adult. And Kirkus reviewed it with it in that tag, and that's actually been amazing, because I think it is a really good resource for teens or young folks, because it is a little bit edgy and it's got a lot of jokes. And when I was young, I loved reading edgy stuff with jokes, and there's funny drawings in it. So yes, I do talk to kids, and I love kids, students.
And then there's a question: can you address the concern that a gender nonconforming or trans person being offended if I misgender them? I hear your personal patience, but I have observed it putting people off from the use of appropriate, for I guess not using the appropriate pronouns.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think different people are going to react differently. I think if you don't know someone's pronoun, what I say in this book is like ask. And I think that I don't know a lot of people that would get mad at being asked their pronouns. However, I have heard that people get offended. I think the question that you're saying in here is, you misgender someone and then after that you don't want to use the appropriate pronoun anymore because there was a negative reaction. Is that sort of the question? I mean, I'm sort of extrapolating, because I think even if you mess up, I think you should still strive to want to sort of honor what they're asking for their pronoun to be, even if they have a negative reaction. I think it's a really vulnerable, scary place when people are really finding out about themselves, and, you know, as a trans person coming into an entirely new gender identity that they haven't been socialized as, and that their body is changing for. And then for me to sort of like have a lot of compassion for how difficult it is for people to take on this new, quote unquote, new pronoun. However, there's also, it's a two-way street of like being really compassionate to the person who's trying to be seen and knows that it goes against the grain and that it's not in that checkbox on a lot of things. That's also something in the book, like just the male female checkbox, you know. Yeah, I don't know if I answered that question, but I would encourage patience and open-heartedness. And if they're being really mean to you, then I don't know if you want to be like connect to that person anyway, right?
I'm kind of reading like a follow-up comment. So yeah, the concern is that people would sort of get turned off from trying if there's pushback, if they mess up, basically.
Oh yeah, like getting burned in the moment that you mess up, and then you're like, fine, I don't really care about that person. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like fair assessment. Like if I'm burned in a moment, I'm not going to try to spend that much time. I think to the point I was trying to make is like compassion to like a transgender non-conforming person trying to be seen, trying to like have an identity that isn't like, you know, the majority. I'm sorry that that person is not, you know, being more patient, because I mean, we're all seeing how our country is being torn right now into two. 70 million people voted for someone that basically said all this shit, said that I actually shouldn't exist, and that like all of the women on this call should be in the kitchen, and all of the men, you guys can have jobs. You know, just saying like there's a lot of division about things right now in our country, and I really hope that I don't know, I'm on a tangent, but I really hope that, you know, we can try to have conversations that are hard and ask the hard questions and sit in these rooms. And I'm, you know, fielding these questions as like a representative of gender nonconforming people and trans folks, so that you have that model for knowing that like using the right name and gender is really human, even if they're not being human to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a question about, I think you did address this a little bit, but maybe if you can just review about why you chose to use a different name than your name assigned.
Yeah. There's a little story in the book where I was doing, while I was like learning about they, and I mean, and this happened, I'm 39, so this was like when I was about 30, so it's like 9 years ago. And I was doing a lot of freelance work in the city, in the Bay Area, but I lived in Portland, and I would take a lot of Lyfts and Ubers, and it said Kate on my thing, right? And I look like this, and so the Lyft person would roll up and then roll down the window and be like, Kate? And then look at the thing and then look back up at me. And I'm not saying that I like validated my reason for using another name through someone else, but that confusion moment happening over and over and over again, it starts to really show you just how dissonant it does feel. And so then I was like, hey, Stuart feels really good. Stuart is my middle name. For me, I do kind of identify a little bit in between the genders. So for me, Stuart, my middle name, I'm in the middle. Like it felt like a really sweet homage. It's also my whole family has the middle name Stuart. My mom, my sister, my brother. So I make this joke that if I do change my name, which more and more I am convinced I will change my name soon, I want to keep it Stuart Getty, so that I'm still sharing the middle name with my family. But for me, Stuart just made sense. Not everyone does change their name. I think it is a little harder when you use a feminine name to then ask for a they pronoun. But I don't think that that's a reason to do it. It just is what felt right for me, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Okay, and we have another question. Should we expect our family member to let all family members know about their new pronouns? If no, then how do we address them when in quotes, mixed company?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I've actually sort of lived this, where with my brother and my sister, I was sort of more letting them know about the they thing, but then with, parents, I was a little slower. And then when we would all get together, it would just default back to Kate and she, because that's what was sort of more comfortable in that setting. And on hindsight, my sister and brother were like, well, do you want us to tell them? Do you want us to do it? Do you want us to be I think that, isn't that your thing? And I think them just asking me, that's the first step. Like ask the friend, ask your transgender nonconforming person before you're in the room and everyone's like, she, they, what is it? Like before you're in the room, say, hey, Stu, like I know that you use they. Mom doesn't know. Like, do you want me to do the labor of telling before we're together? Oftentimes at work, because I will be on projects where other team leads will have to be like, hey, I'm going to let my client know that you use they, them before we're in the room with you. Is that cool? They'll like ask me and I'll be like, perfect. Sounds great. So for me, I love someone doing that labor because I get a little tired too with having to do it over and over, but I think it's more asking what the situation calls for. And I don't have a lot of advice around like if you're in mixed company, because up until like this last couple years, my family has been mixed company where my wife and I will say they and Stuart, and they will say she and Kate, and be like, oh, we're so sorry. Oh, we're so sorry the whole time. But because my wife Nora and I have held that boundary, and every time they say Kate, Stuart, and every time they say she, they, at this point now it's not mixed company anymore. I don't believe that any trans person wants mixed company. I think they want everyone in the room to be affirming their gender and their name. That's my hunch. But I would ask the person before if you want to be the one to inform for them. Yeah.
Okay, and then we have last question, or last so far. So they doesn't denote any particular sexual orientation. Can they include all sexual preferences, including straight?
Yes. And if I'm between these genders and I am in a lesbian relationship with a woman, like, am I? Or would a homo relationship actually be me with another they using friend? This is where it all gets like, why did we do this binary? Why did we call straight and gay? Why did we do it? Like, why are we as humans so obsessed with binaries? Because my hunch is that we're actually, like, we're more these spectrums of gay and straight and male and female. However, yes, to answer, there can be, you know, a non-binary presenting individual that is assigned male at birth and in a relationship with someone who's assigned female at birth, so therefore straight. They may consider themselves all sorts of queer because of different identifications. So I know this is actually in my book and it is murky, and I say that I'm in a lesbian relationship, and then my editor is like, how can you say that you're a dyke? How can you say that you're in a lesbian relationship? And it like blows their mind, because they're like, you're not a lesbian, you're a gender non-conforming person. And I'm like, I know, but I'm with a lesbian who identifies as a lesbian and a dyke, and I identify with all of the socialization that I've had for 30 years as female and lesbian and feminist, and so I like want to hold on to that legacy while also, you know, we just say queer also. That's one way around it. But I just rambled to say, yeah, we can be gay, we can be pan, we can be bi, we can be straight, we can do all the things and use the weird little pronoun, they, them. Yeah. But I appreciate these questions. These are good ones, for sure.
All right, well, let's see, we've got another one. Should we be defaulting to using they as pronouns if we're unsure of someone's pronouns? And do you have any suggestions for asking someone's pronouns in a natural way?
Yeah, these are great. I actually was defaulting to they more and more until it was pointed out to me that when folks are working really hard to own and earn a binary pronoun, when you use they for them, it makes them feel like they're not passing, or they're not, you know, being affirmed in their gender identity. What I mean is, if there's a trans person who uses he or she and you say they, they're like, nah. However, if, like, to the point of like, I don't know when the package is going to get here, because I don't know if they've come yet, you know, to deliver it. In that aspect, I think, yeah, using they in the general is like the right way to go, because we don't know. Don't make assumptions. I think a really natural way to ask people their pronouns is one-on-one, and not in front of a big group, and either before or after your, you know, meeting. I've had people text me, Slack me, you know, the chat stuff, which I think I will take it anyway. There's a part in here that is kind of a real talk moment for cis folks, of like having discomfort around asking about pronouns is kind of a cis privilege. I don't have any discomfort with it anymore because my life, because of this, because I look like this. So when you're feeling that discomfort, just think of that as a privilege that you've never really had to have people question, are you what I think you are from looking at you on the outside? And I think some way we can get at that is by having pronoun circles and pronouns be more and more a part of every day for he, she, they, so that we don't really stumble on it. We're just like, oh, okay, cool. My work now, we just start every project with like, everyone go around, introduce yourselves. What are you going to do on this project? What's your pronoun? You know, what's your favorite food or whatever. And I think that more and more we're going there as a society, because Gen Z, actually about 35% of Gen Z identifies as gender nonconforming. So it's not going anywhere, it's actually growing. So more and more workplaces are going to have to really be affirming and accepting.
One thing, Stuart, that you said in the book, I thought was about the same thing that I really liked, was sort of similarly, like, don't do a big, preface, like, I don't know how to ask you this, but, and just ask it. Mm-hmm. Because making a big deal of it is sort of that, part of that cis privilege. Yeah. As a quick side note, there was a question about where to watch the videos, and I did put the links to both in the chat box. So if anybody wants to go grab those, they're there. We have another question. How can allies support all genders in straight dominant spaces?
These are great. I was hinting at it, but like making pronouns not just something that comes to play when someone who looks like me is in the room, but when it's all cis folks, just to get, because in that process, you're making a safe space. And if you're doing that without me in the room, imagine when I walk in and I'm like, you guys are doing pronouns, cool, yeah, they, them. And it's like, I don't feel so weird that I'm the they, them, because I usually am. So a lot of my friends at work, they put their pronouns and stuff on signatures in their emails, on their Slack. I'm seeing a few here. I think any way that you can create a space that's safe without a trans or gender non-conforming person there, without them being there, that is allyship. That is accomplice. Like, that is great behavior. And so I love that, and I also, like, if someone misgenders someone when that's not their gender or name, being in the moment and being able to be like, actually, no, Stuart, or they go by Stuart now, pretty exclusively. Yeah. And then having someone else, do that labor of making that, because that's really, it's not rocket science. It's just really like being a human in those moments and trying to step up, stand up for, the not normal. Like, I hate that, but like something that's not the majority of the way that people live in this world. Yeah.
Adrienne commented, I remember the first time I just sort of casually asked someone, what pronouns do you use? Even as a person coming into my own queerness and gender, I was honestly nervous, but I just asked, and he simply said he, him, and seemed glad I asked, and then we moved on. The more you do it, the easier it gets, which I think is sort of speaking to your point. Yeah. And a comment and a thanks for answering. Any questions that haven't made it into the chat box yet, or if anybody wants to just unmute and ask questions, that's good too. Stuart, is there anything else you wanted to, aside from trying to address the technical difficulties?
Yeah, that's a bummer. If you are interested in some film that I've made, I would love if you checked out those pieces. And my contact info is on my website, thegettybrothers.com. So if you do have any questions, like, literally email me and be like, I'm still just can't get my head around X. Like, I will write you back, I promise. Because I do want everyone to feel like it's not us versus them or they. Hey, it's all of us trying to create a better world where we're all able to be seen and able to say, hey, I am me and I want to be seen this way. And that's for all of us. That's not just me.
Question about, there's a lot of thank yous and this was amazing. Are you on social media publicly?
Yes, at Stuart Getty. It's not a clever, that's my Instagram. I think on Twitter I'm Stuart Getty. I am Stuart Getty, but I have like 6 followers. I mean, I'm not a big Twitterer, so that's my Instagram. But yeah, and then my website is thegettybrothers.com in case you guys missed it. But that's it. Thank you so much, my friends.
I highly recommend watching the videos. I thought they were fantastic. And this is being recorded, so if you want to share this with anybody else, this will be available. Jonathan, it is on or is going to be on Stowe TV as well.
Cool.
That would be
Please.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. That would be great. Thank you. Haha. It's a joke. I write scripts sometimes and sell them to Hollywood, or try to. And I also work as a freelancer. That's my freelance and director business. So it's entirely a joke. The Getty Brothers. It's only me, but and it is my last name. But the reason I did it is kind of to tap into the implicit misogyny that happens in Hollywood and advertising, which are the kind of the industries that I work in. I've gotten a lot of people to look at my scripts thinking, oh, the Getty Brothers, 2 men wrote this, awesome. And then they open it up and it's the queerest thing they've ever read. But they open it up and they might not have if it didn't say the Getty Brothers. Exactly. Yes. But it's a little bit of a joke. Yeah.
I do see a lot of comments about buying your book, and Abby in particular said she's buying it at our local independent bookstore in Acton Silver Unicorn. I would highly recommend that you also do that if you're planning on buying the book. We do have a copy here at the library, which I guess I will return so other people can borrow it.
Yes.
All right, so if there's not anything further, then we'll wrap up, and thank you so much for joining, and thank you to Stuart for, and Abby is reminding us there is bookshop.org as well, which, Abby, am I right that you can then pick, proceeds go to local independent stores? Mm-hmm. Do you have to pick one?
I don't actually know, but I just know that that would be a way to support local bookstores as opposed to giving more money to Amazon. So, and I know the Silver Unicorn has been, promoting a lot of books by LGBTQ authors, so I think supporting them would be a great idea.
Agreed.
Awesome. Great. Well, Thank you so much, everyone. Blessings on the rest of your nights, and thank you to your little town.
So much. Yay. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
What do you mean by the word I? I myself, your personality, your ego, what is it? Well, first of all, obviously, it's your image of yourself. It's composed of what people have told you about yourself, who you are, how they've reacted to you and given you an impression that that's the sort of person you are. But it's an image, it's an idea, because if you see yourselves in the correct way, you are all as much extraordinary phenomena of nature. There's nothing wrong with you at all. You have to regard yourself as a cloud in the flesh, because you see, clouds never make mistakes. Did you ever see a cloud that was misshapen? Did you ever see a badly designed wave? No, they always do the right thing. Now, so as a matter of fact do we, because we are natural beings just like clouds and waves. Only we have complicated games which cause us to doubt ourselves. And through that realization, you will come to the point where you begin to be on good terms with your own being and to be able to trust your own brain.